So BioSig is a NASDAQ company. We trade under the ticker symbol BSGM. We've been on the NASDAQ since the fourth quarter of 2018. We are a company of approximately 60 employees. The company has a FDA-approved medical device for the treatment of atrial fibrillation. AFib, for those of you that don't know, is a rapid heart rhythm where the heart beats irregularly because the electrical conduction system of the heart is malfunctioning. Usually this is due to age. 1 out of 4 people over the age of 60 have AFib, so it's a very prevalent, a very widespread disease. It's the fastest growing market in cardiology, which is the largest sector of medtech. We are a company that has gotten to a commercial phase. We have been in a bit of an elongated phase. We started launching the product in late 19, early 2020, and obviously selling to hospitals or doing anything with hospitals has been treacherous over the last couple of years. That's all changing rapidly. I believe J&J released their earnings yesterday, and they stated that their medical device business was coming back fast. So, you think about a reopening play. Medical devices are growing, and if you look at what the companies are saying, the larger companies, you'll see that confirmed. We just hired a new commercial team, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we're having a new commercial launch, or relaunch, if you will, post-COVID in June of this year. We have completed over 2,200 surgeries since we entered the market in late 2019, which is a really good number for a small company. We released a clinical trial last year in September. It was published in November, showing that our technology was 75% superior to the existing technologies that are in the market today. We have a substantial intellectual property portfolio. We have 49 patents issued, and they're relatively new. The oldest patent we have was issued in 2019, so we think the IP portfolio alone is considerable value. And our sector is characterized by active mergers and acquisitions. Historically, the large companies in this space, there are 7 of them: Johnson & Johnson, Abbott, Medtronic, Boston Scientific, Philips, General Electric, and Siemens. And if you think about the amount of money these companies have and the lack of R&D that they possess, they look for young, small companies to fill their product pipelines. And we believe this sector is poised to grow regardless of interest rates or any of the other macro forces. We're in a double-digit growth market, which is what excites us. So here's where we have been. For any new medical technology entering a market, it has to go through these phases. There's no other way to do it. So you start with limited market release. You go into a small number of hospitals, and you have to test, you have to learn, you have to fix and improve, you have to deal with all the imperfections. We're going into an operating room, so it has to be absolutely perfect. So in the first period of limited market release, we learned all this stuff, and we got through that phase. We expanded to 17 hospitals. So at the end of last year, we were in 17 well-known hospitals. They were using our technology virtually every day. We had approximately 75 surgeons using our technology. And because of that and the success we saw there, plus the success of our clinical trial, the board of directors authorized me to go out and find a commercial leader. So we hired a gentleman by the name of Gray Fleming, who is our chief commercial officer. Gray was a leader at Abbott in their cardiovascular business, a very proven winner in terms of his ability to sell medical technology. And in with Gray has come about 7 other people who are building up our commercial capability. And so this year you'll see us expand the number of hospitals. You'll see the commencement of revenues, and we're building and filling a fairly healthy sales pipeline. And as we do that and start covering the country on a national basis, we'll gear up for a full national rollout in 2023. This is our new management structure. I basically, as the founder of the company, have been running the business since we founded it 13 years ago. It has grown to the point where that's no longer sensible. So we've brought Gray in, as I just described. We also hired a gentleman by the name of John Seekhouse. John was the U.S. head of sales for St. Jude Medical, which was a company that was purchased by Abbott about 3 years ago for close to $30 billion. So John was responsible for sales across the United States. He also had other leadership responsibilities, and he's now become our Chief Operating Officer. He's taken over responsibilities for everything from manufacturing, operations, research and development, regulatory, field work and customer service. It's a lot of work, so I'm happy to have them. This is new for us. Last year, if you saw this presentation, you would have seen us focusing on Texas and Florida in terms of our sales focus. We had one sales individual out there with two others supporting him, calling on hospitals to get in there and see if they'd evaluate the technology. Now with this new commercial team coming in and are getting to that next phase, that third phase that I showed you on the slide prior, we're going to be covering the country in 5 regions. And we will have national account directors, so lead sales people in each one of these regions, and filling that pipeline. We've also expanded the ability of the hospital to purchase our technology through different means. We were only exclusively going through the capital purchase process, which for those of you that know hospitals and medical devices, it's about as hard as it can be. You have to go in front of a committee. Those committees can be large. It's usually about a 2-year time frame, which investors can't stand. And it's really hard for a new company who's launching to fill a pipeline if everything is a 2-year sales cycle. So we added a rental program and we added a corporate leasing program. And I've heard Gray say that he believes roughly 60 to 70% of our business this year and next will be leasing. And just to explain to you how leasing works, we have a third-party leasing agent who uses, I believe, JP Morgan and Wells Fargo. It's like a car lease. If a hospital wants our product, they can lease it. So the lease company, once we install the product, pays us up front the lump sum fee. And our product is selling for the mid $100,000 range. So even though the lease is a monthly payment by the hospital to the leasing company, we get paid up front, and there's no recourse to our company if the hospital doesn't pay. The leasing agent bears all that risk and all that responsibility. This is what it looks like in terms of where our system is and what it does. We basically record the electrical signals of the heart in a way that nobody else can, so we can see all the information that represents your physiologic heart beating, and that information is utilized by the surgeon to make decisions on where he or she wants to place their surgical instrument inside your heart. Today, believe it or not, there's a lot of guesswork going on. Now, they do have a lot of other equipment. As you can see on the left-hand side, they use cardiac maps. On the left-hand side, that's J&J's system. We're in the middle, and on the right-hand side is General Electric's recording system. So we provide information that nobody else does, and that information is used to improve their accuracy and reduce the time of the procedure. We've been able to prove third-party wise that we save in the disease breaks down into 3 general categories: early stage, mid stage, late stage. The mid stage disease is what they call persistent, where it's happening all the time. And persistent cases are not easy to solve. We've proven we can take 12 minutes out of a persistent case with the third party evaluating that. 12 minutes, we calculate each minute in the operating room costs $125. So you multiply 12 minutes times 125, we believe that'll be the initial cost savings per procedure in about 40% of the market. In the late stage cases, which are complicated and messy, we can save up to 30 minutes, and the same 125 a minute stands. So when we go calling on hospital administrations now, we can show them this third-party data, and obviously they're interested in that. This, to me, is a leading indicator for the future of our business. A lot of folks are waiting for commercial revenue from our company, which they'll see soon. But the procedural growth is a leading indicator on revenue growth, because I think all of you would understand that if a surgeon doesn't like a technology, he or she is not going to use it at all. So in these hospitals where we're at, we're seeing a consistently increasing number of procedures, which means they've integrated it into their workflow. And in certain hospitals around the United States, they swear by the technology where they can't do the surgical procedure without it. Can't even speak. The nearest example of this is in Mayo, Jacksonville. They use this system every day there. Dr. McLeod is our leading surgeon there, and they love the technology, and they've spoke to people about that. This is the clinical trial we did. It's published. It's on our website if anybody wants to see it. It basically, we took 3 hospitals in the United States, Mayo Clinic, Mass General, and St. David's Hospital in Austin, which is a leading center, and we blinded the surgeons to our technology versus the standard of care. We compared against J&J's mapping system and General Electric's Cardiolab system, and the data was very positive for us. So we use this information along with the health economic information that I cited, along with the physician's preference for this technology, and that's what we use to sell the product. In terms of the tailwinds I mentioned, there's roughly 12.1 million people in the U.S. with AFib. That number grows double digit every year. Also, the number of new hospital labs in the United States are growing double digit. And so we've got this secular tailwind. I think, with the market being as dislocated as it is, I think investors are going to find their ways back to companies that are going to grow no matter what. We happen to be one of them. This is the patent portfolio I was mentioning earlier. The patents were filed with a firm called Stern Kessler in Washington, D.C. They're the leader in signal processing in the world. They do all of Qualcomm's patent work, a lot of Broadcom's patent work. So they did an amazing job for us. And this becomes very important in any business development conversations we have. Being able to show that we have protected technology is very important. Here's some of the M&A that I mentioned to you earlier. The most interesting data point here is the top line, a company called Affera. Affera is a cardiac mapping system. They also have a catheter, which is what delivers the therapy. We don't have catheters. They were purchased about 8 weeks ago for $925 million. And we would argue that they're definitely a great company. We respect them and respect their technology. If they're a Volvo, we're a Nissan Maxima. It's not that big of a difference. Yet our stock trades at a $40 million market cap. So there's a significant difference between what the private market is saying for these assets and what the public market is saying, and we believe that's important to point out to everyone. And there's a great consistency of takeovers in this industry. In terms of one of the other benefits of selling our product, the way our industry works is a little bit like the beverage industry. There is a very large sort of mass of hospitals that gather in what they call group purchasing organizations. So in order for us to sell to a hospital, a lot of times we also have to clear their group purchasing organization. So we hired a consulting firm out of Boston that's a leader in helping small companies deal with the group purchasing organization. So just quickly, the way it would work is there's a company called Health Corp of America. HCA is the ticker symbol. It's a $270 hospital, publicly traded hospital company out of Nashville. They own the largest group purchasing organization in the United States, a company called Health Trust. So they have a cooperative of 1,600 hospitals. So getting on account with Health Trust would give us theoretically access to 1,600 hospitals. And we're very close to getting on account with Health Trust. So Access Strategy Partners helps us do that and many other things. And last but not least, we have a world-class manufacturing partner called Plexus. Plexus is a $90 NASDAQ company based in Wisconsin. They have roughly 140 customers. I think we're their smallest. And they are going to be building pure EP systems for us. The reason that's important is because we believe that our new selling team, our new commercial platform, will produce a lot of demand for the company. A lot of small medical device companies struggle with manufacturing, struggle having availability of product. And I'm pleased to tell you after 5 years worth of work, we're in very decent shape with regard to supply. So we have inventory right now ready to sell, and we will have more product, and we don't have any supply chain issues. So with that said, that's the end of the show. Sorry about the video. I'll take a few questions. Any questions? Yes. Yeah, the question is why are we going national versus our concentration? It has to do with where we are in our life cycle. So we've proven all the things that a small med tech company has to prove in order to go national. We've proven that we have compelling clinical data. We have now health economic data. We have a good user base. We've sold product to places like Mayo Clinic and HCA. And so with this new commercial team, they have a commercial capability nationally. And so we don't want to limit the company to revenue opportunities. So there are certain states that are low-hanging fruit that we wouldn't have known without this new commercial team. You guys would understand it's easier to sell a system in North Dakota than it is in New York City, right? So instead of spending young companies' energies in these large city centers, we're diversifying our approach because revenue growth historically drives capital appreciation for investors. So we're very much focused on revenue growth, and by covering the nation across the United States, it gives us the opportunity to get into these easier to penetrate markets. And you'll see us doing that quite a bit. Any other questions? Yes?
Discuss a little bit more like a rental model versus, you discussed a leasing model, but is it going to be yearly rental?
Yeah, good. So the terms on leasing, it's a 3-year term. The reason leasing's a benefit to us, I'll speak about rental in a second, is because we can stay on the operating budget side of the hospital's business as opposed to the capital budget. So the capital budget is what you would think. They get a big pool of money that every company under the sun competes to get a piece of every year. And it's really an amazing food fight. And small companies are obviously not as well positioned as, let's say, Johnson & Johnson. But if you stay under $5,000 a month in expense, for what you're offering, you can be paid for out of the operating budget of the hospital. So the average EP business in the United States generates about $100 million in revenues. We would be roughly $3,600 a month for 3 years. So you stay at $3,600, you're under that $5,000 level, you don't need to go up the chain for approvals. You could be approved right there in the department. And what needs to happen is the physician needs to really want it. And if they want it, then you go through the leasing process, which is still a paper tiger for us, but it's a whole lot easier than going in front of the capital committee. As I said earlier, we think about 60 to 70% of our business will be lease. And it's the same financially for us. It's better from a sales cycle standpoint because the sales cycle could be as short as 6 months versus 12 to 24 with capital. And rental, we charge a little bit more than $3,500 a month. And the rental term is really up to the hospital. I mean, we'll rent it to them for as long as they want, and that would also come out of the operating budget. The thing about the lease is it gives them upgrades. We build in certain things into the leasing program, just like a car. When you have a car that's coming up at the end of lease, you can buy it. You could lease it if you want. So it gives the hospital optionality, which in this environment is important because the way the hospitals are right now, there's a surge, just like you see in the airports. Hospitals and airlines and cruise ships have a lot in common because they're all seeing a surge of business coming back. A lot of the elective procedures, and AFib is an elective procedure, but it really isn't. AFib is like cancer, and I hate to talk about such depressing stuff, but if you have it, you want to get rid of it right away. And doing one of these minimally invasive procedures, it takes about 2 hours, and if they get it right, you're cured for life. If they don't get it right, you have to come back and have it done a second time, which nobody likes to do. Our technology is geared towards getting it done right the first time. And so we see a surge of people coming back to the hospital. There was a 12.1% growth year over year in February. It's roughly 21% growth in elective procedures in March. That number is going to keep growing. And if you look at the stock performance of med tech companies, you're starting to see a recovery in the sector. The large companies first, smaller companies will come second. But it's a really good place, to consider investing at this point in the cycle because cyclicals are very expensive. Technology stocks are falling out of the sky like Netflix, et cetera. We've been under, deferral pressure for the last couple of years. People have deferred their procedures. COVID has caused them to want to stay home. And so the hospitals have to have these elective procedures done because they make a lot of money off of these procedures. Our procedure alone Private insurance pays $56,000 for the procedure, and the hospital makes anywhere between $20,000 to $30,000, maybe even a little more for the procedure. So it's a very lucrative area for the hospital, which is why they're investing a lot of money in these procedures. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Oh yes, Greg, go ahead.
You mentioned not getting it right the first time when it comes to electrophysiology.
Mm-hmm.
What does biosig help in terms of reducing that, getting it right the first
Yeah.
time, or the problem with that?
I understand. So if you didn't hear the question, how do we help the surgeon get it right? The way the procedure is done is if your heart's beating too fast, they'll put you under anesthesia. You'll go into an operating room. I showed you the picture. Let me just go back to the photo. It looks like this. And so you're on the table. They take a wire, literally a wire. They call it a catheter. At the tip of the wire are electrodes, little electrode tip. And they thread it through your groin. They snake it like a snake up into the top two chambers of your heart. And using all this medical technology they have in the operating theater, which you can see here, they're trying to understand where the irregular heartbeat is, because it's the electrical system of your heart, but it could be anywhere within the heart anatomy. So it could be on the top of the heart, it could be on the bottom of the heart, it could be on the left inside, all the different geometries. So the way they locate that before us is they use a map. So you can see it here with the, see my cursor? That's a three-dimensional anatomical view of the heart. So it's sort of like Google Maps. It can get you to the neighborhood where you live, but they can't tell you which driveway to drive into. So what we do is we use the body's electrical information, and we're able to show them with the signals that we show them exactly where they want to go. And if you speak to some of our clinical leaders about how they're using this technology, they'll tell you in medical terms, but essentially what they're saying is we show them places to go that they've never known exist where the problem is. So when they go there and they put their wire and they deliver energy to that region of the heart, I've actually witnessed this, it's amazing. They burn in a certain part of the heart goes back to a normal heart rhythm, and then out come all their instruments and they're done. So, in one case I saw last November, I watched our system help the surgeon put the patient back into normal heart rhythm, saved about 40 minutes off of what would have been his standard procedure, because the system showed him a signal he didn't realize existed. He saw that, he went to a certain place, boom, he was done. It was incredible. So the more and more we have that happen, the more and more product we're going to sell. And again, people think we use COVID as an excuse. It's actually helped us. I'll tell you how COVID's helped us. We were not ready for demand from a manufacturing standpoint. We were at a third-tier manufacturing supplier who just wasn't capable of scaling the operation to meet the needs of the company. So if we had huge demand come in, and this has happened to other companies in the past, demand comes in, doctors get excited, salespeople are out there, they get commitments, and then you don't have any supply to offer the market, and then the company's out of business. So we have our manufacturing setup now is in really good shape, so when demand hits, we'll be able to supply the market. And that's it. I'm getting the hook. Thank you, everybody.